ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Hare Krishna. Welcome all to the second session of Essence of Bhagavad Gita, day 2. So yesterday we had a session on, more importantly, understanding Bhagavad Gita as a manual, as a guide, as the essence of all the Vedic scriptures. That includes our Upanishads, our Vedas, our Puranas, our Itihas. So all the essence, the saram of all the Vedic literatures condensed into Srimad Bhagavad Gita, that we have already seen yesterday. And also we saw in detail about the background in which it was spoken, the Mahabharata war, the war situation in Kurukshetra, and also in detail about the position and the understanding of Arjuna. So we have seen that also. And then we have also seen about the 5 basic principal elements of truth that is mentioned in detail in Bhagavad Gita: the Ishvara, the Jivatma, the Prakriti, Kala and Karma. And also we dwell little detail into what is to be spoken on from a Bhagavad Gita perspective on the 4 major yoga systems, namely the Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and also the Ashtanga or Dhyana Yoga. That also we have just touched upon. And also we have seen the main essence of understanding Bhagavad Gita is in itself, and all that we have to be is in a state, in a mood, in a mind of how Arjuna, in the midst of the war, he was in a kind of a state, and from there how did it all start about. So we all saw that also. And also most importantly, understanding of Bhagavad Gita has 4 major components. One is called the Atma Sakshakaram, or who am I, this Jivatma, and who is the Bhagavan, or the supreme authority, or the supreme personality of Godhead, or the Param Dhaman, or the Paramatma, or the Brahman. So in whatever understanding we have, so that is the second part. And third part is the relationship between this Jivatma and the Paramatma, or the Supreme Lord. And the third most important part is how are we establishing that wonderful relationship between these two. What should be done? So that is what we have seen yesterday from the essence of Bhagavad Gita. So today we will continue from the point where Arjuna was lamenting in terms of not willing to fight. Initially he had the vigor as a Kshatriya, he wanted to fight at any cost, but Krishna being beautifully placing Arjuna amidst the war, amidst his own grandfather, his own relatives, what is the mood, the mind of Arjuna, and then from then on we will start today. Continue. So Arjuna could see in the biggest battle of world, he could see all his different kind of the close relatives, like his great grandfather Bhishma, then his uncles, his own father-in-law, his own sons, in terms of the his brother's sons, his grandsons, his friends, everybody were there on the opposite side. So that is what is very, very important. Like one is being a very, very strict and disciplined Kshatriya level person, but what is the other way of seeing that particular thing? As how are you being so compassionate? How are you being so merciful? How are you being so tolerant? So when you bring out all these wonderful qualities, Arjuna demonstrates here where he is not willing to fight. Okay, so initially Krishna says, what is this? Are you a fool? Krishna himself starts with this word, like are you a fool? You are supposed to do your duty, you are supposed to fight. You have all come here to fight, and then when you don't fight, then it's a big sin you're going to occur. So even then Arjuna says, no, I will not fight. My whole body is trembling. My hair is standing on an end. My bow Ghandivam. The Ghandivam is very, very powerful bow, right? So Arjuna being a very valiant warrior, Dhananjaya, his name itself is Dhananjaya. The name is Vijaya. Like, there is nothing called failure from Arjuna perspective. But the same person is in a very contrasting way. He started crying. Almost he starts trembling. He just leaves out everything and say, no, I will not fight. What is the use of my fighting? After victory, if nobody is there with me to enjoy, then what is the use of my fighting? So in one way, if you see, Arjuna brings out all kinds of reasons not to perform a duty. When we compare ourselves, we are also in some kind of a state where when you are supposed to do an activity, when you are supposed to perform an action, supposed to perform our prescribed duty, we find or we get a lot of ways and means to say no, say I will not do it, or to avoid it. So Arjuna, very, thinking himself very brilliant and intelligent, he's trying to bring out various reasons. Oh, if I kill them, then I will get papam. I will not get into this. The whole society will go off. All those things he's bringing out. And then from the second chapter only, interestingly, the whole of first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna does not talk anything. He just starts only from the second chapter, interestingly. And in the second chapter, Krishna is saying, what are you talking about? I know everything in the past. I will know everything that is going to happen. You will only know what is going on now. Which means what? The Lord himself proclaims that I know the past, I know the present, I know the future. But you will know only the current one, the present one. So you should understand all these kings, all these people who have lined up here, they have never been existing, or they are not going to exist further. Like, for example, if somebody says, oh, I'm going to live many more years, no, that is not the case. Nor they will not be going to stay for many long years. One day or the other, they are also going to die. So you should understand the important concept. Natveham devam jatunasam natvam ne janadipaha. You should understand the concept of life. So from there, Krishna begins the wonderful Bhagavad Gita. When he begins, Arjuna is in a state of mood of surrender. He says, oh, I am completely bewildered. I don't know what I am going to do. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So what he pleads, initially he was thinking, I am a big warrior, but he surrenders to the Lord. He says, please guide me. Please help me. Please tell me what is right. Please tell me what is wrong. Then I will act upon whatever you say. Which means what? That is the easiest way, to get understanding of the knowledge. When you want to go and learn some particular skill or an craft work or something, all you have to do is just listen, just understand what your teacher or the person who is teaching you, just follow them, and then you will get the knowledge. For example, if you want to learn some, in the so-called period of this corona and epidemic, you are at home and you're trying to learn some cooking. It is best way you just ask your grandmother or your mother to cook, and you just follow them. You get expertise in cooking. Similarly, you want to learn riding, you want to learn driving, whatever be it, you just follow the instructions of the expert, instructions of the master, instructions of the person who knows better than you. Then you will get it. So Arjuna takes that particular position as a disciple, as a student of Krishna. Initially, people think, oh, Krishna is a friend of Arjuna, that is why it was given to him. No. Yes, it was there at one state, but then he realizes that no, he is not in that position compared with the Supreme Lord. And then Krishna starts with the Bhagavad Gita. So when he starts with Bhagavad Gita, first and foremost important thing that what Krishna is saying is this human form of life. Everybody will say, what is this human form of life? We all know, oh, this is a Jivatma, this is an Atma. But really, who am I? You have to understand that. Najayate Mriyadeva Gadachinnayam Bhutva Bhavita Vanabhuyah Ajo Nityah Shaswatoyam Purano Nahanyate Hanyamane Sharire. Very fantastic way Krishna is bringing Unna Jayate Mriyadeva Gadachin Nahanyate Hanyamane Sharire, which means what? You have to understand, Arjuna, you have to understand that you are not this body. You are just the Jivatma. The Jivatma are an Atma inside a body. This body will perish. This body will birth. Then it will grow. Then it will get into old age. then it will definitely die. But for the Jivatma, it is always eternal. It is always unborn. It is ever existing. There's nothing called, oh, Jivatma is reduced, Jivatma is getting old, Jivatma is very young. No. So this is the first fundamental understanding that everybody should get. That's called as Atma Sakshakaram, which means, who am I? I am just a simple Jivatma. When I say I am Jivatma, which means the next step is the other person you are seeing next to you, like maybe your friends, your relatives, anybody, they are also just Jivatmas in that particular type of body. That's all. And Krishna goes little more detailed, explaining the science of soul, the science of Jivatma in the second chapter, like 10 to 15 slokas, very nice slokas, which will kindle interest, which will make you go back and study much more in a detailed scientific understanding. Dehinosmin yata dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tata dehantra praptir dhirastatra na uyati. So what Krishna says, simply like now when the body, when a newborn baby is born, you see the Jivatma is there inside the body, but the same baby, it keeps growing so fast. Within 1 month, 3 months, 4 months, 8 months, 1 year. After 1 year, it starts walking. After 2 years, it starts running. After 5 years, it starts running and becomes a boy or a girl. And then it just keeps growing on and on. And then it becomes a beautiful youth. And then after some time, slowly at the age of 30, 40, in a full grown youth stage, it does all kind of actions. But after 40, 50, again, slowly the descendants from an accidents position, it all starts descending, which means what? Slowly the so-called youth, the so-called the well-built body starts deteriorating. Like, you get eyesight is little reduced, you're not able to walk. Slowly it all goes down and finally the body perishes, which means what? The death happens. When that happens, what is happening? Simply that same Jivatma just moves out of this body and takes up into another body. That's all. So throughout this life cycle, if you see this, it is only the same Jivatma just keeps moving from one body to another. That's all. So in a very easy said and done, but how do we understand that is what is more important when we read Bhagavad Gita. So what does it says? Vasamsi jirnani yata vihaya navani grignati naroparani tata sharirani vihaya jirnani anyati samyati navani dehi. Which means what? Like, how do we keep changing our shirt or our cloth? Like, for example, you before 10 years or before 5 years, whatever shirt or whatever dress that you were wearing, now you don't wear anymore or you cannot wear anymore. Which because what? You're outgrown or you're changed in such a way that you have to discard your old clothes and take up new clothes. Similarly, this Jivatma also takes up a new body whenever it is ready and it just discards. And the body becomes useless. Either you burn it or you just bury it. That's all. So when you have this kind of an understanding, a deeper more analysis is this Jivatma, like, it cannot be killed. It cannot be cut into pieces. It can be, it gets into tool pieces, tool levels, or it can be burnt in fire, or it can be put in water. No, nothing will happen to this Jivatma. Nainam chintanti shastrani, nainam dahiti pavakaha, na chainam kledayantyuapo, na shoshyati marutaha. Which means what? This Jivatma is eternal. It is Sachidananda level. It is at beyond this material manifestation, beyond this material mode. Just because we are in this material world, in this earth, in this universe, this Jivatma is got or taken up into a particular physical body. So when we have this physical body, you should understand that after a period of time, after the Kala, the actions are completed, then simply this Jivatma takes up another body. That's all. So when you understand that, what is that you're trying to do? You have to just ensure that whatever you are trying to do, trying to advance from a normal material level, normal whatever activities you are doing, you try to do it in a more understanding way, more intelligent way, more spiritual way, then you will never lose anything. Then you are at a higher level. But until otherwise you don't understand this concept, then it is going to be very tough that you have to keep coming and going, coming and going. For example, you have been undergoing this particular cycle of Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi, which means what? Moving from one particular level to another level for many, many millions of years. So it is very important that we move out. So for that, what is most important? It is called as the unflinching faith, the trust on the one particular sublime truth, the Lord. Okay. Again, Krishna is saying in the 41st sloka of 22nd chapter, Vyavasatmika buddhir ekaha kurunandana ekaha. You might have multiple routes to reach a particular destination. But if you understand what is the right, easiest, smartest route, then obviously you will be, willing to take that route, which is much more confidence, which will much more be very, very truthful, which will much more be sublime for you to reach the destinations. Which means what? We have to focus on one particular thing. What is it? Who am I? What am I supposed to do? And what is that I have to do so that I don't come back in this material world? How do I go out of this material world? That should be your main goal of life. That's what Krishna is saying in the Bhagavad Gita. So when your goal of life is clear, you have to understand what is that you're doing right now. Right now, maybe you're a student, or right now you may be a housewife, right now you may be in a state of professional work, or whatever be it. Most important thing is you have to do your action, which is part of your day-to-day life, and you have a lot of bondages. When I say bondages, bindings that you have to do. Okay, as a student you have to study, as a father you have to do activities that will help run the family. So like that you have your own responsibilities. We call it as responsibilities for your assigned role. You have a role to play, and for those role you have a responsibility. So when the responsibility comes, you have to understand so much of importance for the Jivatma, which is within the body, where the so-called mind and intelligence also plays a very, very important role, which Krishna is bringing out in a very detailed way again in the second chapter. So what is he saying? Why do you need to control your mind? Because you need to get attention, you need to focus, you need to have some kind of a concentration. For example, you want to study, then what do? You go to a peaceful place, or you try to avoid a lot of disturbances, so that you're able to focus, you're able to get attention, right? So that is where your need for the so-called controlling the mind comes in picture. So Krishna is bringing out that point very clearly. Why do you have to control your mind? Why? Because you need to have success, you need to have peaceful of mind, you need to have happiness, and you are ready to have joy, you are ready to have blissfulness, you want to have enlightenment. But on the opposite side, what is that it is there? You are being frustrated, you are in a mood of fearness, always there are somewhere or the other, there is some worries, there are some stress, lot of doubts, why it is happening, what is this, we don't know. And sometimes shame also, we don't know, we are in a particular state, we are complete in a shameful state. So all these things are answered through Bhagavad Gita. How do we come out of this? How do we understand that? And then how do we focus our mind? How do we focus our actions is very, very important. So yesterday we saw the based on your knowledge, your actions apply. So it is very important. One of our actions that you perform is through your intelligence, but rather than your mind. So what does your mind does? The second chapter, Krishna is more scientifically bringing out this point. The functions of mind is basically of three major categories, only three, just feeling, willing, and thinking. People will say, what is it? That's all? Yes. Because all that mind is just keep on thinking about something or keep on willing. Willing means desiring, oh, I want this, I want that, oh, I will do this, that. And then you start feeling also, oh, this is very nice, this is really bad, I'm really worried, I'm really happy. So these are the three main things continuously You might think, oh, I have controlled my mind. My mind is not at all, no. Your mind will be keep on wandering about these three main things. Thinking about what I will do tomorrow, what I will do this, if this happens, that. So it keeps going from one particular state to another state. In a more intelligent way, we have to understand there is something called as our sense organs. We all know, okay? The 5 sense organs that we have, through which we are able to listen, we are able to see, we are able to smell, we are able to understand, we are able to hear, like, the indriyas called as jnanendriyas and karmendriyas, which is nothing but our ears, eyes, nose, tongue, skin, voice, our legs, hands. So karmendriyas means actions, the indriyas that is required to perform an action, and knowledge acquiring, the indriyas through which you get knowledge. Knowledge means some kind of an information that will help you to perform an action. When we do this, the first and foremost important thing is, how do we understand the difference between mind and intelligence? In a very simple way, how do we understand? This body is all pushing towards indriya tripti. Indriya tripti means fulfilling our sense organs. We always have to, either keep on enjoying this particular body, is just to keep on enjoying within. Like, for example, you get nice food, you want to eat, keep on eating food. If you want to eat some kind of watching some movies, your eyes always focus on, oh, okay, I'll keep on watching, I'll keep on watching. So how is that happening? That is all through the mind. But when you start applying intelligence, then you will realize how far you are away with the mind. In the sense, for example, tomorrow morning there is a particular very important thing that is going to happen, or you are supposed to attend, or you have an examination. But morning 4 o'clock, what will your body or your skin or body will say? It's okay, let us sleep for another 5 minutes. Let us sleep for another 5 minutes. Let us sleep. Like that, it will keep on pushing. Who's doing that? Your mind is doing it. But whereas when you apply your intelligence, immediately your intelligence say, "Arey, get up fast. You have to study." So your mind pushed through the senses will always go for a opposite direction. But when you use your intelligence to make decisions, then your decisions will be always on the right side, okay, on the perfect state. This can be applied to anywhere, any particular situation, any state of mind. If you are in a stressful condition, if you are in a problematic situation, you ask whether you are performing an action, or you're speaking through your mind, or you're speaking through your intelligence. For example, if a teacher is scolding a particular student, is she using her intelligence or mind? She's using her intelligence. Why? Because she wants that particular student to be corrected. So outwardly it might look like, what is this? This is so nonsensical. But inwardly, if you see, she's using her intelligence so that the person gets rectified. Right. So many times when we see, oh, my heart says this, let me do it. But if you ask little more paused state of decision making, then your intelligence will come out and say, no, this is better, this is good. So sometimes outwardly it might look like, the decision taken through intelligence might be in a very wrong way, or kind of against the particular person. But when you apply it sincerely, then it will be always on the right direction. Okay, for example, in a very old man, I'll give an example. When old man is trying to steal something. Okay, so what is a policeman will see? When he sees through his mind, he'll say, oh, it's okay, he's a very old man, it's okay, let him steal, that's okay, I will try to manage. But when he uses his intelligence, then he will say, no, I have to do my duty, I have to arrest him, or I have to scold him, or I have to correct him. Whatever be the remedial action, I will do it. So in that case, he is using his intelligence, but not going to the mind. So I request all of you to go back and do some kind of an exercise between the intelligence and mind. For example, Sunday morning 4 o'clock, there is a important thing that you have to wake up. So how much level you decide on the output, then either your mind or intelligence will come. Okay, so go back, do some kind of an homework, and then tomorrow you can come back and put some your comments and your posting. Then we will ask for questions also. Then we will know to what extent you have understood between the mind and the intelligence. So Krishna is talking in detail about this, which is why, because this Jivatma is so much engrossed, so much engrossed that it is not willing to come out of it. Why? Understand this. Who am I? I am just a Jivatma. When I say I am just a Jivatma, it means the other person who is seeing there, the other person who is I'm looking at is also another Jivatma. I'm scolding somebody, or I'm against somebody. But if I see from an intelligent perspective, I will also know, oh, the actions or words for him, whatever he is doing, it is wrong. But I will see him from that level where he is also another Jivatma. So when we see that, we also have to see the animals, the insects, the plants, whatever be, to extent where there is life, we should be able to see the Atma, the Jivatma inside that particular animal. It can be a big dinosaur, or it can be a coronavirus also. Even within the coronavirus, the Supreme Lord is there. Along with the Jivatma of corona, there is a Paramatma sitting inside that particular body of the virus and performing its own activities. Similarly, how are we performing our own activities in the human body, in the body of animals, in the body of plants, insects, birds, bees? There is also Jivatma and Paramatma inside the virus also. So we should understand that mind is higher than the senses. Dhyato Vishayan Pumsah Sangas Tejo Vajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kama Kama Krodho Vajayate. Which means what? Why does we get angry? Why does we get attachment? Why does our mind get so much of confusion? It is all because of the word called as attachment. Which means what? I get lot of desire fulfilling. Oh, I need this. So initially we might not try to procure it, try to do some kind of way, hardworking, continuously hardworking to procure. But if we don't get it, what happens? Our desire converts into lust. Somehow or the other, I want to get it. And if you don't get it, what happens? You get frustrated. You become very angry. Like for example, you want your children to study. Okay, if they don't study, what will happen? You become angry. You try to, try to calm yourself, try to do this activity, that activity. But at one point of time, you lose your, because you're so much attached, to what they are trying to do in terms of the action. You become angry, and then you start doing activities which is against the principles, and your mind is deluded. When your mind is completely deluded, your memory is also completely lost. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're supposed to do, and you're completely a state of bewilderment. So what Krishna says, it is better for you to use your intelligence, control, or channelize your senses. It is not possible to control your senses. We'll say, oh, I am controlled, I'm able to do this dhyana, this yoga, this. Yes, there are some remedial ways you can do it, but those are all temporary only, because it keeps coming and going. It keeps coming and going. Chanchalam hi mana Krishna. Arjuna says, my mind is chanchala. Chanchala means always fluctuating. Here and there, it is not at all possible for me to control. But then Krishna gives an understanding. What is the solution Krishna is giving is also very important. Krishna is giving abhyasa yoga. Only by practice you will be able to control your mind. So that's what Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita. That is also one of the most important essence that we should understand. So far we have seen who am I, the Atma Sakshakaram, and what am I supposed to gain knowledge in terms of what I'm supposed to do. And when I know what I'm supposed to do, the most important thing in our understanding is the word karma. So the word karma itself is actually transcendental knowledge, the jnana of karma. Jnana of karma means you should understand what is meant by karma and what is meant by vikarma and akarma. These are the three main categories in which you have to see. So people will generally say karma means the result and the output of an action called either punya or papam, right? But here in Bhagavad Gita, you have to make sure you get a clear understanding. When I say karma, it means the actions that you perform that has been prescribed in the rules, prescribed in the scriptures. actions as per dharma, as means whatever you are doing, which means what? You are getting punya, you are getting lot of pious karma, pious activities. You get lot of credit. For example, you do good activities, you get good benefits. What is the opposite of karma is vikarma. Vikarma means that is completely against the rules, completely against the principles of religion, completely against the law of the land, whatever be it. So what is the output? What is that you will get? Papam. You will definitely suffer of it. Right? The same action, if you apply it in a karma perspective, it is punya. But the same action that you perform against the law of the land, against the will of the Lord for your own personal benefit, then it becomes vikarma. So what is a resultant of a punyam? Whenever you get lot of punya, after the birth, after the death, you will be born. Like, no, this particular jivatma who is a very, very generous person. He is a big donor. He is a very nice person. Okay, very good. What is the output? Yes, he will be, going to the heaven. He will be enjoying for whatever benefits he have received. And then again, he will be born in a very royal family, or in a very aristocratic family, or in a very intelligent Brahminical family, whatever be it. But still, he or she is again in this material world only. For example, if somebody does papam, somebody does lot of vikarma, we all know, oh, he is suffering because of his, correct. So where is he suffering? Either he will be suffering in the same material world, this world, or he will be suffering in the hell. So he cannot escape the reactions of his activity. Reactions can be either good or bad. So what is the solution? The only solution is we should either not be doing good or not doing bad. We should be doing much more intelligent, the super good or best way. What is that best way? That is called as akarma, which means what? Whatever that you are trying to do, you have to see it is not bonded. It is not binding to you, which means you don't add punya or papam, which means you are surrendering, you are offering everything to the Supreme Lord. Then it becomes very, very clear that you will be focused on your goal of life, on your mission, on your ambition of your life, irrespective of your current position. You can still continue to be a teacher, you can continue to be a student, you can continue to be a worker, you can do whatever you want. But the actions that you perform, when you offer it to the Lord, when you say, this is not done by me, it is through the grace, it is through the mercy, it is through the willingness of the Supreme Lord that I was able to do this activity, then you are free from this bondage, which means the reactions are taken up by the Supreme Lord, so that you are free from either the so-called, from an accounting system, we call it as credit or debit. So the more and more credit, what does it mean? The more and more punya you're doing, and more you'll be enjoying. The more and more debit, which means what? The more and more you are in a hellish state. But your balance should be zero, so that you get some kind of a pious, more than pious, and then go back to the Lord. So whatever the actions that you do, it will become in a very, very higher state. That is what is prescribed. Okay. So this again, I want you to go back and then work upon your actions. You can put any kind of an action, like cooking, sleeping, eating, walking, talking, working in a computer, studying, whatever be it. If you apply it in these three things, then you will be able to see the real benefit out of it. For example, when you do, most importantly, when you do an action, first thing that you perform an action is, first you will try to say, oh, okay, I don't want to do it. Na karmanam anaramban nashkaramyam purushosnute, which means what? You might say, oh, I will not do this. No, Krishna is saying you cannot abstain from work. You will not be able to say, oh, I won't work. Sometimes, mostly, in the mood of, in the so-called renunciation, oh, I've renounced this, I will not do it. But just by simply sitting also, your mind is in a very agitated stage. You will be keep on thinking about it, which means what? You are actually working on it. You are actually evolving it. You are either designing it, you are planning on it. So this Jivatma, until and otherwise in this material world, within this body, will continue to, will have to work. It cannot say, oh, I'll not. What kind of work? It is actually serving. When I say serving, it is like so doing the seva, either serving themselves, self-service, or serving somebody else. For example, you're eating. What is that you're doing? You're eating for yourself. You're enjoying this middle body. But when, for example, when you're serving your parents, or when you're serving food, when you as a mother or as a father, you are serving to your children. What is it you're doing? You are serving others. So any kind of an action in one way or the other will fall under this category only. You go and work. Where are you working? You are working in an organization. You are serving somebody for which you get some kind of a remuneration. You get some kind of salary. And with that salary, again, you either serve yourself or give it to your family, and they enjoy on it. So in that way, the work cannot be said, oh, I will not do it. And Krishna says you cannot move out of your prescribed duties, because Arjuna is that kind of a state. He says, no, I won't do it. Krishna is bringing out this state. And few more main points that what Krishna is saying from an essence perspective is, you can't be a pretender. You cannot be a thief, which means what? In the so-called state of work, okay, I'll do it. So in the say for Nam Kavas, they say, there's just state of mind, they'll just simply do it without even understanding what is the output, without even bothering about it. No. When you do your activity, when you do your duty, your prescribed duty, you have to do it with full faith, with full understanding, with full knowledge. Then the result will be very sublime, will be very good. Otherwise also, what Krishna is saying, you have to be in a state of mind to accept whatever be the output of that particular action. Okay, we cannot be thinking, oh, I did this, I have to be successful. No, even though you have done it, there are so many other factors and other things which have been encompassed, and the output might be different. And most importantly, Krishna is saying, don't be a thief, which means what? You do all the things and just enjoy yourself. For example, you do so many activities, you work hard like an ant, you work hard like a donkey, and at the end of the day you get salary or your benefits. What do? You just simply enjoy yourself. Then Krishna is saying you are a thief, which is very, very hard word, but Krishna is mentioning it here. Don't be hard. For example, he is saying, Annad bhavanti bhutani parjanyat anna sambhavaha. Yajnat bhavati parjanyo yajna karma samudbhavaha. So how does the rain come? Is through the yajna. When you perform yajna, the devatas become pleased, like Lord Indra, who is in charge of the rain, and Varuna, then they give rain. Because of the rain, you get the grains, and because of the grains, you are able to survive. And for that grains, you work hard like anything. Either you work as a policeman or an office person or this person. At the end of the day, you all need is just to have your stomach filled, right? So we have to understand that particular concept very, very clearly, which means Krishna is making it very clear. Don't eat sin. What does it mean? It means whatever you have got eating today or having your food today is all because of not, yeah, one sense, yes, I have earned it through my livelihood, but how did you get it? What kind of ways and measures you have got it? That will determine your karma. That will determine whether it is punya or papa or akarma. Which means what? It has been brought through the Lord, given through the Supreme Lord, given through the various means by which we have received it, and we are supposed to thank the Lord. We are supposed to offer it back to the Lord, or we have to understand the power or the position of the Supreme Lord, or we have to realize that it has been brought through the Supreme Person, and we have to thank Him. We have to say, appreciate, understand what is that you have it today. It is all because of the karunya, the mercy of the Supreme Lord. When you understand that, then you will feel, yes, the note of thankfulness, the note of faithfulness, the note of being sincere will always be with you. Otherwise, you will be moving into the mood of cheating, the mood of getting angry, mood of getting falsehood, mood of trying to make something or the other to make yourself in a state of fulfillment of your own desires. So that is why Krishna is saying, please come out of it and don't eat sin, which is meaning what? Whatever you are trying to offer to the Lord whatever you're trying to enjoy. First offer it to the Lord. Whatever you're trying to eat, whatever you're trying to do, first offer it to the Supreme Lord, so that you will be removed from all the reactions, which is very, very important. There is a very nice story that I will just wanted to convey. So once there was a sannyasi. He was living in a forest, and he was always in a forest, focusing his mind, his using his intelligence, focusing only on the Supreme Lord, reading scriptures, and he was very clear on what he was doing, and everything was perfect for him. So the Raja, the king, going on a forest trip, he sees the sannyasi and asks him to invite him to the palace. Please come. I want to give you respect. I want to give you something. So please come. But the sannyasi says, no need. Why do I need it? I'm already fulfilled here. I am getting whatever I want, whatever be the roots, whatever be the fruits, everything I'm getting here. So I'm very happy. So I don't need anything extra. But the king insists, please come just for my sake. I want to honor you. So then this sannyasi says, okay, I will come. Not an issue. So the sannyasi comes, and the king invites him, makes him the chief guest, gives him a lot of respect, makes him sit in a big asan, big throne, gives him a lot of respect, gives him garland, lot of welcoming ceremony, and then makes him a very palatable dishes, like big feast of food. So the sannyasi, being a sannyasi in the sense, what does he get in the forest? He eats, and he starts relishing the food like anything. So much of nice food, various kind of varieties, varieties of sweet, varieties of fruit, so many things, a big gold plate, silver spoon, whatever be it. So the sannyasi just eats everything, and then he's at the end of the day, he thanks the king. He goes back. When he goes back and sits in his ashram, his stomach gods his stomach gets some kind of trouble. Then he says, what is this? I've eaten so much of nice food, something is wrong, something's wrong. Then when he just tries to see what he has got in his dress, he finds himself puzzled, because he has got a silver spoon that has been attached to his cloth. Then he's shocked, how did the silver spoon come into my hand? Then he starts thinking what happened. So when he was having his food, after finishing his food, his mind was so agitated that he just took that silver spoon and kept in with him his cloth, and he has actually stolen it. He has stealed that particular silver spoon and then brought it back to his ashram. So the sannyasi becomes puzzled. I've been performing this sannyas for so many years and so many austerities, but how do I make such a simple, silly stealing? Then he is puzzled. Then next day morning, he just goes back to the king and says, King, I want to convey something very important. What happened? Yesterday after the food, I had stolen this spoon. And the king himself is shocked. Wow, what is this? I had a lot of respect to the sannyasi, but he is being so cheap. He has stolen the spoon. Then anyway, he says, okay, anyway, it's just a simple silver spoon. It's okay, and then I will pardon you. But this sannyasi says, no, 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 no. That is one aspect of being pardoning. But I want to know how it happened to me. Then he calls everybody and asks, who did the cooking? Who brought out the essentials? Who brought the provisions? Like that, he starts investigating. And then the king says, the court, the royal court, cook only cooked. And then he calls the cook. Cook says, yeah, I only cooked. What happened? So he just inquires from the cook. And then where are the ingredients brought out? Where was the rice brought out? Everything he starts investigating, the sannyasi. And finally the sannyasi finds out that the rice that was brought out was from a stolen person. Like was somebody the previous night, the rice was taken from the granary, where it was deposited by a person who had actually caught a thief. Which means what? The government officials had caught a thief, and he was trying to steal rice. So that stolen rice had gone into the government, or gone into the king's gajana, or king's this one, and that was cooked in the rice. So then the sannyasi realizes the mind, the mood, the mentality of stealing had been in the rice, and that has got into his mind. So that is why it is very, very important. The food that you eat only agitates you. If you are in a very angry state, it is all because of the food you eat. If you are in a mood of very, very good state, it means you are taking nice prasadam, nice food. So we will go in detail little more day after tomorrow about the food, the aharam, which is called as ahara shuddhi, which is also very, very important, because the essence of Bhagavad Gita relies about the action that you perform, in which your senses are being controlled. And how do you control the senses? In that, the most important is sense of your tongue, which is like, taking your food. So if your food is being in a very state of sublime level, then 90% of your bad karma, your activities, are being in a very correct state of mind. So when you grow, when you start developing that particular level of mood, you become a very intelligent person called as panditaha. It's not about panditaha means somebody who is at a very knowledgeable person. Yes, he is knowledgeable. When Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini Suni Chaiva Swapake Cha Pandita Samadarshanaha. The word Samadarshanaha is very important. Once you get that particular knowledge on that particular level, you will see everybody in equal state. Everybody in the sense, it can be a big pandit to a dog eater, to a chandala. Like dog eater means a chandala, or an elephant or a cow, whatever be it. Why? Because you will see the jivatma inside the particular body. Only the body differs. Today the body is a dog, tomorrow the body become an elephant. Then the day after tomorrow the same jivatma will get into a body of a human body. So if you start performing more and more bad activities, what will happen? Definitely in the next birth you will again go into an animal life. So that is why it is very important, when you have that Atma Sakshakaram, you have to understand the value of human life. It is not that easy that you have got this particular human life. You have gone into many millions of cycle and then you have achieved this. So don't waste this human life by performing bad activities, which will lead you again back to your animal way of living, and then you have to struggle hard to come back to human form. So with your mind, what you are supposed to do, you have to upgrade, you have to elevate, you have to come up from a normal understanding level to a higher platform. When you come at a higher platform, then the same mind is a friend rather than an enemy, which is more important, because your mind will always say, oh, don't do this, it's okay, we can do it later, you can do it later, because your senses always wants to keep on enjoying. But when you move out of it and start, yes, there should be enjoyment at particular time, at particular level, and then understand what is the real need of that enjoyment, then you will be able to really relish it. So Krishna is giving some very practical tips. Okay, what are the practical tips? He is saying you have to regulate your habits. What is meant by habits? In the sense, the actions that you perform will incomplete based on your habits, right? Habits make a person. You will say, no, I show me your friend, I will tell about you. The similar way, when you have good habits, you will be in a good disciplined way of life, balanced way, then you will know what is your goal of life. It will be very easy. But your balance is not in a state, it is kind of an imbalanced state, where you are either eating too much or eating less, or sleeping too much or sleeping less, whatever be it. In either way, if you don't regulate it, then you will have a lot of trouble, lot of problem, in the sense you are not able to decide. Your decision making will go into different aspect. He includes eating, sleeping, and recreation also. Recreation means your enjoy, the so-called free time enjoyment, that also has to be regulated. It cannot be there for every time. So what will happen then? You will be in a particular state where others will be in a different race, and you will be at a far behind state. Okay. So for that, what is that you have to do? He's saying, oh, by practicing the yoga system, oh, you have to do yoga. Yes, the physical dhyana yoga or the ashtanga yoga will give you some kind of a regulation, some kind of a discipline, some kind of a self-control. But to what extent it will go? It will be just performing that, and where you will be focusing only on performing that, but your actions, your other focus, your goal of life will slowly move away. So what Krishna is saying, yes, even though that is required, you have to go beyond that particular level of understanding. So when you go at that level, Most importantly, people will start looking at you. People will start realizing, oh, this person is very good. This person I have to follow. I have to become, oh, he is my role model. Which is where Krishna is bringing out a lot of good qualities, styles, ways of being a leader. Okay. Yaddat asharati shreyas taddat evatro janaha. Which means what? Whatever a great person does, others will simply follow that. So this is what Krishna is saying to Arjuna. Arjuna, you are a great leader. You are a big Kshatriya. You are a big warrior. And you are supposed to fight. If you don't fight and you just run away, others will also follow you. And then they also don't feel, or they'll also not get that mood. They get that attention to fight. They'll also, skip from their duties and run away. So Krishna is warning Arjuna here. Yaddat ashrati shreyas taddat evatro janaha, which means as a leader, you have to perform. You cannot say, no, I will not do it. You have to set an example. As you set an example, others will follow. Similarly, as a parent, whatever you are trying to do, your children will do. If you don't wake up at 7 o'clock, you cannot expect your children to wake up at 5 o'clock. If you can't restrict your tongue in terms of eating multiple gulab jamuns, you cannot restrict your children. You cannot restrict your own parents also. To whatever extent we are setting an example, that will determine others' outlook on you. So it is more about what is the action that you perform. It is not about the position that you are in. Irrespective of whatever your state of mind, your position, your action based on the knowledge, based on the intelligence that you are applying, then others will simply follow you. There's nothing you have to do. You don't have to force your students. You don't have to force your children do this. No, when you do it, they will also definitely follow. So this is again one more kind of a parenting tip that we always say. Oh, people will say, oh, my father is my role model, my mother is my role model. How do you bring that out? It is based on your actions, based on being your compassionate nature, based on whatever you perform, the children will just like that follow. And most importantly, in all the actions, in whatever be the way it is being performed, if you see, apart from whatever power, energy, strength that we are trying to do, there is somebody beyond our so-called state, so-called level, is the Supreme Lord. So he says, yes, there is somebody behind me who's helping me. There is somebody behind who's doing all those things. When somebody realizes that, then he becomes a realized person, which is very truthful. This you will get only when you start performing, when you start practicing, when you start understanding, you'll get this. Oh, there is somebody beyond my state, or one who sees me everywhere. If you're able to see the Supreme Lord's hand, if you're able to see that, oh, this is all because of the Lord's desire, the action or the hand of the Lord, and sees everything in me. Whatever is happening, it is all the Lord. Which means what? He is never lost. Nor is ever lost to me. Which means what? The Lord will ensure, the Bhagavan, the Supreme Lord Krishna will ensure he is always with him. So slowly, when you start understanding what we are trying to say from an essence, you are gradually graduating from a normal Atma, normal person, to a Jivatma, understanding about yourself, what are the actions that you have to perform, how you are performing. When you do this, what is the output? When you do this, what is the output? And what you are supposed to do. When you do this, you are becoming a leader. And then slowly you are graduating in terms of your knowledge, in terms of the actions that you perform, and focusing your mind using your intelligence. Focus everything through intelligence. You can easily able to control your senses and the mind, because this mind is nischalati. Nischalati means it just keeps wandering back and forth, because the senses always want, they are like burning fire. Like how do you stop your burning fire? Either you have to pour water, or you just leave it as it is, it will just go off. But if you keep on adding fuel or something more to it, more wood to it, it will just keep on continuing. So what you have to do, you just have to simply withdraw, simply try to stop it. Then it will automatically get into a state of control. So for that only Krishna gives a very brilliant solution. Chanchalam hi mana Krishna pramati balamadharadam. Arjuna is saying, I'm a big warrior. If there is a wind flow going from one direction to another direction, I have so much of power and weapons that I'm able to control the wind through my arrows. But my own mind, which is on my top of my head, I'm not able to control. Just by seeing my own relatives, just by seeing them, I'm in a state of bewilderment. I'm not able to decide. My decision making is completely gone. What should I do? So these are some of the very fantastic, intelligent questions Arjuna keeps asking. Throughout the Bhagavad Gita, there are 18 chapters and 700 slokas. We have to understand what are the intelligent way of asking questions. Through Arjuna, we are able to also understand Bhagavad Gita because through Arjuna's questions. And Krishna very benevolently, very kindly answers all of them. So Krishna himself saying, yes, it is very tough. Ashamshayam Mahabaho. Since yes, whatever you're saying is very true. You cannot control your mind. Somebody will say, do this yoga, do this practice, this transcendental meditation. We are able to control your mind. Yes, you will be able to control for a few seconds, 2 minutes, but is it going to be on a permanent basis? No. Yes, our solution, our way of understanding, reading Bhagavad Gita is through a permanent way, which is called more in terms of your practice, your abhyasam. Krishna is giving that solution only through your practice and vairagyam. So these are the two things today you should understand and learn. What is that you're going to take home today? Practice and vairagyam. Vairagyam means detachment or renunciation. What is that detachment? Abhyasam, people will say, you know about English sloka, English proverb. What is that? Practice makes a man perfect. Yes, Krishna is giving that example. You want to control this thing, you just keep performing, practicing on and on and on, then you will become very perfect. But most importantly, you have to start renunciation. Renunciation means leaving about whatever is not required for you. It is not that, oh, I will renounce everything and run away. No. Whichever is not required for you, whichever is not relevant for you, you have to start controlling. You have to start having the detachment. That's called as vairagyam. You have to be more determined. Determined means, let's say somebody is calling you, like, you can you take this, can you eat one gulab jamun? Oh, very happily your mind, your tongue will say, wow, sweet, eat. Okay. Then the second one, then also again you will say, yes, I will take it. Fourth one, should I take it? Then like if you're going to take it, your stomach will get upset. But when your mind will always say, it's okay, chalo, we will take, and we can add some tablets to it. But when you use your intelligence, you will say, no, I have to stop. I already have got a lot of diabetics, and then it'll upset my stomach, so I should not take. Which means what? You are using your intelligence to make fantastic decision making. So Bhagavad Gita gives a solution to all your decision making when you start applying your intelligence. Sometimes it might go in wrong. Why? Because your memory is still not fully acquired with the experience. But the first time it is okay, you get an experience. The second time, immediately your intelligence will come. It's like kind of a hard disk which will say yes or no. Initially it will go and say yes, have I experienced? No, okay, let me try. But once it is experienced, then definitely your intelligence will be in a state of mind to give the best judgment. Okay, so this lesson is also very important. You can go back, start thinking about abhyasam and vairagyam. So at that particular stage, knowledge, you are a person called as a self-realized person, which means what? You are at the Atma Sakshakaram level, which means you have realized who you are, you have started performing karma, you have got little understanding about who you are, then the gyan or the knowledge about yourself, which will help you to perform actions, which will make you decision making very easily, which will guide you to whatever performing action. It includes your food, it includes whatever actions that you're trying to do, which will help you in a state of mind. So regularization, practice, and renunciation or detachment or vairagya is very, very important. So when you do that, what is most important thing that you have to think about is establishing the supremacy of a person from whom you have to get that knowledge. To whom you have to get, again Krishna is bringing out in the 4th chapter very nicely, tad vidhi pradipathena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshanaha. The word tattva darshanaha is very important, which means what? When you want to understand the knowledge, when you want to understand about how to do it, you have to approach a bona fide spiritual person, a person from a parampara, or a person from a disciplic succession. Then they will give you the knowledge. Then they'll give you the actual truth, by which you can ask submissively some questions. You have to render service to them. For example, yesterday they were asking, like, why this Bhagavad Gita is not taught nowadays. Earlier it was in Gurukula system. Yes, in Gurukula system, it is not only about learning, rendering, and getting knowledge, but it's more about rendering service. You have to perform service to the Gurukul, to the teachers, to the acharyas there. Then you will be able to get the discipline and as well as knowledge. So in current state of mind, current state of society also, you have to approach, like for example, if you want to study something, you approach an institute, a particular teacher to gain your academic knowledge, right? Similarly, your spiritual understanding, your study of Bhagavad Gita also requires a particular authority, a particular institution, and a bona fide person who can give you this knowledge. It is not about advertising. It is not about making money. It is not about business, 4 weeks, this, that. No, it is all beyond that, where the real truth is brought to you to make you understand what is that you have to really perform. That is what the master will teach you. That is what the master was supposed to give you. Okay, so today I think we will stop here, and then tomorrow we will continue. The next step, when you have realized who you are, what are your actions perform, you have to realize about the Bhagavan, about the Supreme Lord. What is that he is doing? What is that he is mentioning in Bhagavad Gita? So once you know that, then you will be able to relate to whatever actions that you are performing, and then take up the next steps. Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna. So as usual, I request all of you to put your questions and comments either through this particular channel, or you can always mail to me, and then we will always be obliged to provide you any kind of a recommendation and guidance. And also feel free to share your comments and suggestions. Hare Krishna. Thank you.